On the 31st of May, Washington, following a number of European countries, as they said, officially gave the green light to the Kiev regime to use supplied weapons to strike areas bordering Kharkiv Oblast in Russia. In announcing this decision, U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken said, this is a direct quote, "The strikes will go deeper and deeper into Russian territory." And he also added that the West will continue to adjust its strategy. I will allow myself to say for him what he, for some reason, was too shy to say. The United States of America has been adjusting its fire, not the West's position, all these years. And by the way, not only since 2022. The involvement of the West, not only in the destruction of the statehood of Ukraine, but also in direct hostilities against the peaceful civilian population of Donbass, is not a secret. Where does such modesty come from? Why do they now call it some kind of an indulgence, issued only in the year 2024 to the Kiev regime to use their weapons for strikes? And this is the very deceit, the very lies, the very hypocrisy, which, from the point of view of the West, will allow them to avoid responsibility for their destructive activities, for all the same things that they have now allowed the Kiev regime to do, but have been doing for many years in the future. Although I hate to break it to them, they will not escape responsibility, they will not be able to avoid it. And immediately after these statements by Blinken, just a few hours later, residential neighborhoods in Belgorod were targeted, attacked with the help of American HIMARS multiple rocket launchers, which means American weapons were used by the Kiev regime on civilian objects to practice the realization of a terrorist act. All the missiles fired at the city were shot down by Russian air defense forces. There are a huge number of such examples, both statements by Western representatives and their concrete actions to implement the terrorist strategy of the Kiev regime. But I cited this particular one because, in my opinion, it is probably the most telling. And most importantly, we simply do not have enough time if we were to list every statement by representatives of the collective West in the same manner as this one. So I have chosen the most representative one. And what happened is yet another evidence of the West's involvement in the Kiev regime's long-standing grave war crimes. I would also like to add a very important nuance. After all, these crimes of the Kiev regime were planned, developed, and implemented not just by the Kiev regime, not just by Zelensky and his criminal group. All of this was prepared for the Kiev regime by representatives of the collective West individually or in their NATO grouping. We possess the evidence. After all, the arms supplied, the weapons provided by the West to the Kiev regime cannot be used without the participation of Western instructors physically on the ground. And among other things, target practice is impossible in the absence of relevant information with coordinates. The Kiev regime does not possess such information. It is, of course, provided by the collective West, and first and foremost, of course, the United States of America and Britain. In fact, Washington has handwritten its own confession of guilt with such statements. We see and hear a confession. I would not call it pure-hearted, a cynical confession of killing women, children, civilians who live in the Russian regions as well as at the border. The wreckage of Western missiles in Belgorod region, including from HIMARS, will serve as indisputable proof of the guilt of Washington, London, and all those whom they have dragged into such a crime by this bloody circle.
Кого они этой круговой кровавой порукой втянули в подобные преступления.